Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Yesterday was a rough day for me at the gym. Deadlifts are a wonderful exercise, make no mistake, but the last thing you want to do after completing a set of deadlifts is smile or move. So, rather than my usual plan of swim a few laps in the pool, I opted for floating around a little in the leisure pool at my gym. Move from one spot to another, trying to steer clear of children doing what children do in the pool. Things like screaming, throwing toys around, swimming around without looking where they're going, effectively turning leisure swim time into a sneaking mission. I was rather successful at this, right up until a boy who appeared to be around 7 or 8 years old decided to spike a beach ball into the back of my head. Wasn't a huge one or very heavy, little damage on my end. I figure it might have been a mistake, so I reclaim the beach ball and give it to the boy who'd thrown it at me. Less than a minute later, I get doinked again, and so I reclaim the ball and ask the kid nicely to stop throwing stuff at me. He nods and grins, and I go back to what I was doing. 3 guesses what happened next. If you needed more than one to assume the boy spiked that ball on the back of my head for the 3rd time, see me after class. So, after strike 3, I grabbed the ball and asked the kid where Mom was. Mom, as it turns out, was reading a book on a lounge chair poolside. Please note this place has an excessive number of lifeguards, not as negligent as it would be at a hotel pool. So I dragged the child and his ball up to Mom and explained that the kids beamed me with a beach ball 3 times, and that's kinda not cool. Mom decided to do the head toss someone does where they're rolling their eyes behind huge sunglasses and said something to the effect of, "It's a beach ball. Boys will be boys." I toss the ball onto Mom's legs and get back into the pool, keeping an eye out for the kid. A few minutes later, I heard muffled giggling behind me, and then I felt the soothing sensation of a beach ball to the back of my head for the 4th time. I reclaimed the ball, yet again, and intended on making eye contact with the kid and popping their ball right in front of them, but then the bad idea fairy rapped me sharply on the head with their magic wand, and I had an evil grin, not unlike the grin the kid gave me after strike number 1. So I tell the kid to come here, I want to show you something, and then I submerge the ball under the water and pinch the air nozzle, which makes air bubbles shoot out. Happens to look exactly like someone was tooting underwater. He's not strong enough to submerge the air-filled ball. So I tell him to get on top of it and use his body weight to sink the ball. He managed to do that, and his face lit up like it was Christmas morning and he'd gotten everything he'd asked for. He promptly swam off and found other people to annoy. I didn't get a ball thrown at me, and the kid's mom was pissed that she had to blow up the beach ball again. Was actually asking her son how it went flat so fast, when it was a brand new beach ball, in between big gasps of breath trying to fill the ball up. Kid just points at me on my way to the locker room. I wave and say, "Oh, boys will be boys." This happened a while ago, but I was reminded of it after bumping into an old friend. Thought I'd share the story because, after 13 years in retail and customer service, I still can't believe what some people think is okay. Back when I worked in a bookstore in a shopping mall, we had a quiet corner set up with cushions and a few toys where kids could sit and read. One day, I noticed this little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, sitting there quietly, engrossed in a picture book. She had tucked herself away so neatly in the corner that we hadn't even noticed her until then. It was a busy day, and we had been preoccupied with restocking shelves and assisting customers. When we finally saw her, it was almost surreal. She was so silent and still, just turning the pages of the book slowly. I went over to her and gently asked where her parents were. She looked up at me with these big, innocent eyes and said her mommy was in the shop next to ours, and had told her to wait in the bookstore. I asked if she knew how long her mom had been gone, and she pointed to the clock on the wall, indicating where the hands had been when her mom left. It had been nearly 3 hours. I couldn't believe this kid had stayed quiet and out of sight for so long. I felt a pang of guilt for not noticing her sooner. We decided to take her to mall security. One of the security guards was a dad himself, and as soon as he saw her, he went to get some biscuits and an apple juice for her. The poor girl was clearly hungry after being alone for so long. I'll never forget how her face lit up as she munched on those chocolate chip cookies and sipped from her juice box. It was a small gesture, but it made a big difference to her in that moment. The security team started searching for her mom, and it turns out she was in another mall down the street. There were 3 smaller shopping malls in close proximity to each other. When they finally found her and brought her back, her reaction was nothing short of astounding. She genuinely didn't understand why what she had done was wrong, and was actually mad at us for involving security. She argued that her daughter was safe in our store, and that she had instructed her not to cause trouble. This set off alarm bells for the police, who had been called by security. The kid's demeanor was unsettling. Too quiet, too compliant for a child her age. It was as if she had been conditioned to be that way. The mother's justification was ridiculous. She said that since our store sold kids' books and toys, we were practically babysitters, and it was our responsibility to watch her child. The police were just done with her. They took her to the station, and the girl went with Child Protection Services. The mom was kicking and screaming, threatening to sue us for slander and defamation, but of course, nothing ever came of it. I think about that little girl often and hope she's in a better place now. It was obvious she had been taught to stay out of the way and not make a fuss, but no child should have to go through that. It still amazes me how some parents can be so oblivious to their responsibilities and the potential harm they put their children in. Retail can be a rough job, dealing with all sorts of people every day, but this incident stands out because it was a real eye-opener about how some people treat their kids. I've seen my fair share of bad parenting, but this took the cake. And it wasn't just the negligence, it was the complete lack of understanding of why it was wrong. Looking back, there were so many red flags. The way the little girl didn't cry or complain, the way she just sat there quietly for hours. It was like she knew any kind of fuss would bring trouble. Kids aren't naturally like that. They're curious, noisy, full of life. Seeing one so subdued is heartbreaking because it means something is very wrong. I don't know what happened to the mom afterward, but I hope she faced some kind of consequence that made her rethink her actions. More importantly, I hope that little girl ended up with people who truly cared for her, who let her be a kid. Every child deserves to feel safe and loved, to have the freedom to be noisy and curious without fear. So yeah, this happened years ago, but it left a lasting impression on me. It's one of those experiences that makes you more aware of the silent struggles some children face, and it's a reminder that sometimes, in retail or customer service, we have to look beyond the obvious and be a little more vigilant, because you never know when you might spot someone who needs help but doesn't know how to ask for it. Several months ago, my grandmother-in-law was in an accident that was not her fault. This resulted in both her prosthetic leg and her real leg getting broken, among other injuries. Granny is just full of rage. She's 80 years of rage, people. She had fought hard for decades to remain independent and never be put in a home or become someone's burden. She wanted to live in her own home, take care of herself, and die in her own bed. Sadly, the accident made that impossible. She will never be able to walk under her own power again, and she hurts herself using a walker or whatever you call those wheeled things. She wants to live at home. However, she knows she would need someone there constantly, so she hired a day nurse and a night nurse to take care of her. She refuses to move into any home, whether it be relatives or otherwise. In an effort to get her out of the house, my wife and I would take her out. Yes, we were very careful about where we took her, and we used masks and antibacterial products. We tried to take her to places that weren't too crowded but were wheelchair accessible. A mall that was about an hour out of town had reopened. It's a sad place because many of the stores were closed and possibly would never get any new business. It was a dying building, but the food court still had excellent food. We went there today. The kids were off playing with some friends, so it was just my wife, my granny, and me, taking laps around the mall, taking turns pushing Granny. Granny was wearing a long skirt but didn't have her prosthetic leg on. You couldn't really see that she had one leg unless you looked very closely, So, I can kind of understand why this entitled dad thought that my granny had 2 legs. We got hungry and went to the food court to get something healthy, to eat. We pulled up to a table and started to chow down. Then, the entitled dad appeared. I don't even need to transcribe this part. It's a dime a dozen story about an entitled parent who wants the wheelchair that someone is currently using. We say no, she says she cannot walk, and the entitled dad demands it for his son. He was sitting at another table looking like he was out cold. He was that tired looking. Granny finally had enough, looked him right in the eye and said, "Young man, this is my chair, which I need to move about. I don't care how tired your kid is, he cannot have this. I would not be able to walk at all." The entitled dad, obviously, replies, "You may be old, but you don't need it at all. You can walk, you old crone." Granny got red in the face. "Old crone? Look here, little boy, I may be old, but I can still kick your behind, even if my only leg is in bad shape." The entitled dad scoffed at her. "I bet you're only faking having 1 leg." Granny looked like she was going to yell again. Except she just grinned. She turned her chair to him and lifted up her skirt. She showed him that she was indeed missing a leg. "Think I'm faking here, kid," she said in a snide tone. "Think this is a fake stump?" The entitled dad looked embarrassed and tried to talk. Granny wouldn't let him. She actually lifted up her stump a bit. "Why don't you touch my stump? Come on, it might be a real stump, might be fake. Touch it and see, touch my stump. If it's a fake stump, the chair is yours." The guy backed off and started for his table. Except Granny started to wheel after him, yelling, "Come on, touch my stump, you know you want to. Touch it." My wife was cracking up at this, so I had to be the one to grab her chair and bring her back. The entitled dad picked his son up and carried him out of there quickly. Granny was grumbling about how rude that man was, but she looked so darn proud of herself. The few people there that were within hearing range were also laughing, although 2 people looked disgusted at my grandmother-in-law. Forget them. At least that got some of her anger out of her system. The situation calmed her down a great deal and cheered her up. So a little backstory. I had to have surgery to remove kidney stones. They put in a device called a JJ stent, which needed to be removed the day this happened. This all took place in the waiting room of my surgeon's office while I was waiting to be seen for the removal. Also, I should note that my surgeon's office is on the hospital campus where I work. Cast. **** entitled mom, entitled kid, nice dad me, nurse, coworker 1, coworker 2, supervisor. I arrived at the doctor's office in the morning, and the waiting room was pretty much empty except for a few people. I signed in with the nurse at the front desk and found a place to sit. I got there about 30 minutes early, so I pulled out my laptop to finish up some reports for work. My laptop is a Panasonic Toughbook with a privacy screen, which is important later. A few minutes after I had pulled my laptop out, I noticed a child screaming at his mother that he was bored. The child saw my laptop and ran over to me, and the following ensued. Entitled kid, "I'm bored, let me play a game." Being as polite as I could, I said, "I'm sorry, but no. I have work to do, so please leave me be." The kid then ran back to his mother, who came over to me. Entitled mom, "My kid is bored. Let him play a game on your computer," I replied. "I'm sorry, but no, ma'am. I have work I need to finish." Entitled mom, "Come on, you can just do it later. My son needs something to do." Entitled kid, "I want to play, I want to play." The kid was screaming this the whole time. Entitled mom was trying to get my laptop. Entitled mom, "You can play in a minute, honey." In a stern voice, entitled mom said, "My son just wants to play a game. What is the harm in letting him play?" I responded. "For one thing, this is a work laptop, so even if I wanted to, he could not play on it." Entitled mom, "That is nonsense, you are just being selfish." At this point, her screaming had gotten the attention of one of the nurses, who came over to try to defuse the situation. "Nurse, ma'am, please lower your voice. What seems to be the problem here?" Entitled mom, "This lady refuses to let my little angel play on her laptop." Nurse, "Well, ma'am, it is her laptop, not yours, so she can do with it as she wishes." Entitled mom, "Well, my child is bored and needs something to do." I said, "Well, maybe you should have thought of that before coming here today." This enraged entitled mom. "How dare you tell me how to be a mother, you mean person?" The nurse, who knew who I was since I work for the hospital, just looked at me, and then back at entitled mom with a "you shouldn't have said that" lady look. I calmly and silently closed my laptop and put it back in my bag. Entitled mom, what are you doing? I told you to let my kid play a game, after I had closed my bag and locked it. It's a nice hard laptop bag with a lock. I stood up and reached into my purse, pulling out my work ID, which happens to be a police badge. The hospital I work for has a fully licensed police department inside the campus, for which I am an officer. I said, "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you this once and only once." I flashed my badge. "Go sit down and leave me be, or I will have you escorted from the campus." I didn't want to cause more of a scene, plus, I didn't want to have to write another report on top of the one I was currently working on. Entitled mom and entitled kid left the waiting room, and I sat back down. The nurse and I laughed, thinking it was the end of things. I got called into the back to see my surgeon. About 30 minutes later, I was done and ready to head out. I went back to the waiting room to talk to the nurse before leaving. As soon as I opened the door, I saw entitled mom and entitled kid standing in the waiting room, talking to coworker 1, coworker 2, and supervisor. Supervisor came over to me. I said, "Good morning, sir. Let me guess, she is claiming I'm impersonating an officer?" Supervisor: "Yes, and that you stole her kid's laptop." I explained everything that happened, and the nurse also gave her statement, which backed up everything I said. Plus, we have cameras everywhere, so it was recorded. Supervisor: "Entitled mom, please have a seat." Entitled mom: "No, I want to stand." Supervisor: "First thing is first, you need to calm down." Entitled mom: "I'll calm down once that lady gives me back my son's laptop, and you arrest her for lying about being a cop." Supervisor: "Entitled mom, do you know that filing a false police report is a crime for which you can be arrested?" With a snobby tone, entitled mom said, "Are you implying that I'm making this all up?" Supervisor: "Ma'am, would you come here please and sit the laptop case on the table?" I said, "Yes, sir." I sat the laptop bag on the table between supervisor and entitled mom. Supervisor: "Please open the case and prove to me that this is yours." Entitled mom: "Okay." She tried to open it, but I had locked it, and only supervisor and I knew the combination. Entitled mom: "That mean person changed the combination." Supervisor: "Ma'am, please open the case." I opened the case and supervisor pulled out the laptop. Supervisor: "Entitled mom, is this the laptop that you claim is yours?" Entitled mom: "Yes, it is." Supervisor: "So, you claim to have bought your son a Panasonic Toughbook?" Entitled mom: "Yes." "No, let me have it back." Supervisor: "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this laptop is property of the hospital's police department." Entitled mom: "Then she must have stolen it from you guys. You need to arrest her now." Supervisor: "Entitled mom, you need to calm down before I arrest you for filing a false police report." Entitled mom: "What about her?" Supervisor: "What about her?" Entitled mom: "Aren't you going to do something about her impersonating an officer? She clearly doesn't look like one. She looks like a street person." I was wearing my workout clothes, as I had plans to go to the gym after my appointment. With that, she stood up and slapped me across the face. I exclaimed, "What the heck?" Supervisor: "Ma'am, do you want to file charges?" I said, "No, but she needs to apologize for that, or we can charge her with assaulting an officer." I was willing to let everything go and not have her arrested due to the fact that entitled kid was there. I didn't want to traumatize the kid any more than he already was. Entitled mom: "Why should I apologize? I did nothing wrong." At that moment, nice dad walked into the waiting room and asked coworker 1 what was going on. Coworker 1 explained what was happening. Nice dad walked over to us. "Nice dad, entitled mom, give me the car keys. I'm going to take entitled kid out to the car." Entitled mom gave nice dad the keys, and as soon as he had them, he told supervisor to do whatever we had to. Supervisor: "Ma'am, do you want to rethink charges?" I said, "Yes, I will press charges." Supervisor arrested entitled mom. She would have gotten off with just the assaulting an officer charge, but she resisted arrest and in the process stacked up 2 more counts of assaulting an officer and disorderly conduct. Come to find out, she has had a habit of causing trouble and has had dealings with local police in the past. Nice dad came in a few days later with entitled kid and apologized for her actions. He explained that this was his last straw and that he was filing for divorce and full custody of entitled kid. He even apologized to me and gave me an "I'm sorry" card. A few months ago, entitled mom had gotten released from jail and was in the emergency room at the hospital, causing a scene, which is why I remembered this story and decided to share it. Update, ***, since many of you have asked for the scene from the emergency room, I will add it to this post later tonight once I finish work and get the rest of the story from supervisor. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. My F17 mom, F44, in the past few weeks are trying to force me to date her friend's son, M17. For context, him and I used to be pretty close friends back in middle school. 2 months ago, he has broken up with his long-term girlfriend. Despise me having a relationship. Mom constantly telling me to come over to comfort him, always telling me he is the perfect kind of guy for me. One day he tried to kiss me, so I told my mom that and that I don't want to hang out with him anymore. She slapped me so hard that I almost cried. Told me I'm making him more sad by this, and I should be ashamed. He later phoned him and said sorry to him, and told him I really loved him, and he should not give up. Sadly, he listened to her and keep trying to hit on me. Update 1. Just wanted to give you an update. So I started to wrote down every incident, reported to the school counselor. They called the police. They questioned me about it. Furthermore, they talked to my mom. She acted like she was unaware that she made me uncomfortable and said the slap was accidental. After they left, she told she should have been raised me harder. Since then, not spoke a word with me. The guy sent me a text that the police visited him, but he had no hard feelings about it because he knew I would never harm him, and the police probably just misunderstood what I said. So that's it for now and hopefully forever. Update 2. Hey everyone, sorry about not updating or answering messages. My mom took my phone away from me. I usually use it in the morning when she is sleeping. She did not allow me to leave my room at all. He called the school and told them I was sick and couldn't go, barely gave me food. I have decided that on Monday I will be moving to a friend's house. Yesterday, she told me that my BF texted me that he wanted to meet me at the park, and if I really wanted to go she would allow it, but I couldn't leave the park area, and gave my phone back and shared the GPS coordinates with her phone to know I really didn't, and she is the one driving me here and driving me home. I was surprised at how generous this was in comparison to the previous few days, weeks. I of course agreed. Even in a limited space, this is good. So I quickly prepared, because she had only told me an hour before. She wanted me to put up clothes that she said were slutty before. I just thought she really did a 180-degree turn. When we arrived I saw him nowhere, but she assured me he would be there. I got out of the car, and just waited on a bench. I looked through the messages my BF sent me, but there was no mention of this meetup. I thought maybe my mom would want me to believe my BF had forgotten, and I would be mad at him. I saw someone coming. It was the guy my mom wanted me to set up. I started to realize what this was. I quickly read his messages and noticed that my mother, in my name, had invited him to meet here. He came to me, hugging me. I immediately told him I had not sent the messages. He looked like he understood. I told him I would be leaving my mom's house but didn't tell him when or to where. He suggested that the simplest solution to my problem would be for me to simply kiss him when she sees us. I told him no way. I decided it was time to go and called my mom to pick me up. When he heard the car arrive, he pulled me close and said, "Just a quick kiss, okay?" I didn't reply, which he took as a yes and kissed me. After that he told me he loved me and kissed me again. I just said bye and left. When I got into the car, Mom just smiled and said we looked very cute together. Hopefully after Monday I will never see her again. This just happened. I was having a great morning with my wife and kids when my neighbor texted me. We have never spoken in the 6 to 7 years that we have lived here, and she has always given my family and me dirty looks. This never bothered me, but it always bothered my wife. We never knew why she did this, but today we found out. Side note, her husband seems like a decent guy who just acts like he is defeated by his wife. The few times that I have spoken to him, the conversation has always gotten cut short because his wife needed him for something. My house has a very long driveway that leads up a hill to my house at the top. The bottom quarter of the driveway is shared by my two neighbors. They have to drive up it to get into their garages. My side yard overlooks one neighbor's backyard, while my backyard overlooks the other's backyard. My pool is in my backyard. I'm posting the text conversation that just took place. Basically, she wants me to give her my driveway so she can build an in-ground pool for her kids. Her kids are a nightmare, and she has never controlled them. She just lets them run around and do whatever they want all day. I still don't fully understand why she needs the rights to my driveway to do that. But she did not like being told no. If I'm being honest, I did get angry and a little immature during the conversation, but I felt it was warranted for the situation. She thought that threatening and making racist comments about my kids would be the best way to get me to do what she wants. My kids are half Korean, half European. Update *, thanks so much for the awards, everyone. So, I went out with my family earlier today. When we got home, she had blocked off our driveway with traffic cones. I moved them over to block her garage and texted her to let her know. Here's the conversation. I told my other neighbor about what happened, and he said that he heard about her sneaking around on her husband. I was angry, got a little petty, and brought it up. I'm still waiting for a response. Update ***, so she never responded to my last text, but she called me a few times today. I was at work, so I didn't answer. She left me such a lovely voicemail. I had to trim it, but my name is still in there, and I don't feel like retrimming and re-uploading. It's been a long day. She says that she is going to build her pool with or without my signature, and that I should sign. In the end, she says to do the right thing and calls me a coward. But I wasn't sure how appropriate that is for YouTube, so I edited it out. You all have some great advice about how to handle this situation, but I haven't decided what to do yet. I don't want to escalate too much because my family has to live right near her. I also feel like I can't do nothing because it will only get worse. I will let you all know once I decide how to handle this. Update ***, a lot of people have been asking me for an update, and I don't think it's realistic to answer all of your messages individually. So here goes. I honestly didn't take my neighbor seriously, and that was a mistake. I stayed home from work on March 1st to make sure that my neighbor didn't try anything. The day was completely normal, so I went to work the next day. When I was pulling down my driveway, there were trucks from a pool company on the street in front of her house. I immediately regretted not taking this situation seriously, but I had to go to work, so I left and called my wife asking her to keep an eye out. About 2 hours later, my wife called, telling me that the trucks had pulled onto our driveway and a few guys had started removing the hedges that line my driveway. To give you an idea of what my driveway looks like, there are hedges that line the driveway all the way up to my house, which then branch out to the right and left, although they aren't the only thing separating my property from my neighbors. In my previous post, I mentioned that my house is on a hill. My neighbors' houses are lower than mine, so their backyards are lower than mine. If you were to stand on my driveway looking at my neighbor's backyard, you would be looking at a 4 to 5 foot drop. The guys were removing the hedges for easier access to my neighbor's backyard. I immediately left work and headed home. When I got there, I explained to the contractors that I had not given permission to alter my property in any way. They told me to call their office, which I did. Unfortunately, my neighbor came outside while I was on the phone with them, screaming at the guys to continue what they were doing, telling them that she owned my driveway. She started screaming in my face, telling me that I was a scumbag, that her kids needed an in-ground pool, and why should my kids have a nice pool and not her kids? Nothing she said made any real sense. I didn't really know what to say, so I just kind of stared at her while she was screaming at me. I was still on hold with the pool company anyway. She then told me that my wife's sister had told her that it was okay for her to cut down my hedges, and that was all the permission she needed. My wife is one of 5 siblings, 3 girls and 2 boys. I am really close with her brothers, but not with her sisters. They've always been weird to me. The oldest sister straight up called me a racial slur once a few years back. To be fair, we were in a pretty heated argument. And the younger sister was never openly hostile towards me, but has been mooching off of me for the last 10 years and flips out on my wife if we ever say no to her. I really didn't know what to say to my neighbor at this point, so I just walked up to my house to speak to my wife. After my wife spoke to her sisters, we found out that my sister-in-law, younger, has been speaking to my neighbor for the last year. She claims that she mentioned to her how the city had used eminent domain to take some of my property a few years back, but nothing more than that. I guess my neighbor thought this meant that anyone could take my property. Still not following the logic here. So yeah, this situation is completely bonkers. I'm putting a fence around my property now, which I really don't want to do. The pool guys assured me that they wouldn't be returning, but my neighbor is absolutely crazy, and I'm wondering what she has planned next. My wife and I were talking about moving across the country to get away from her sisters, but we didn't want to leave my mom and brother. My kids love them. I guess my neighbor made our minds up for us, so we will be moving away as soon as possible. If anything else happens, I'll keep you all updated when I find some time. Edit asterisk. The general consensus seems to be that I should speak to a lawyer and the police. I'm taking the day off to speak to a lawyer tomorrow. Also, a lot of comments about what is going to happen when I sell the house. I'm going to speak to my wife about it when I get home tonight, but I don't think I'm going to sell the house. Hopefully, I can put this house up for rent. Edit 2 asterisk asterisk. I met with a lawyer this morning. She spoke a lot, but it doesn't seem like she can do much. I did call the police though. When I got home earlier today, the glass on my front door was cracked, and one of my basement windows was shattered. I checked my cameras, and my neighbor was knocking on my door for a few minutes before kicking my front door repeatedly. After she cracked the glass, she walked around to the back of my house and kicked in my basement window before running away. I called the police, and they were here in less than 5 minutes. I gave them the footage, and they went to knock on her door. I was told that I would be able to get a restraining order. I'll post an update when I find out what is going to happen to her. We're still going to move, but we are most likely going to sell the house. My wife just wants to forget this place exists, and I don't disagree. Someone tagged my posts as fake, not sure why. I made my first post because I wasn't taking my neighbor seriously and was kind of amused by the situation. I posted this one because many of you have been asking me for an update. I don't really want to post a picture of my driveway or house on a public site like this, so I guess believe what you want. Kind of a small one, but lately my dad and older brother have been trying to push the job of making the shopping list onto me. Of course, because I don't know how much they need since I'm the least food-interested person in the house. I need someone's help with making the list. As Dad had gone to bed, my brother helped me. Well, he helped me. He would sit there and tell me which item I needed to check one at a time, and give me a vague or stupid answer as to how much we needed of something. For example, we needed 35 tubs of mint ice cream, or the amount of beer we needed was a fridge, and I was getting annoyed, especially because he was trying to watch a movie at the time, and kept pausing and unpausing it between items. So I had to deal with him always telling me to shut up and wait for the end of the scene, or a good time to pause, which took several minutes per item. For a full shopping list for 3 people and a cat. Did I mention it was like 11:45 p.m. when we started doing this? And this is after he had dragged his feet on helping for 3 days? Eventually, I got sick of it and started writing exactly what he said when it came to his foodstuffs. So we needed an amount of veggie burgers, just guess of tuna. Shut up, this is a good bit of dark cooking chocolate, and look at the silly moggy of butternut squash, and so on. By the time we were done, it was past 2 a.m., and I was knackered, stressed, and satisfied with my work. I took the list upstairs to my dad, left it on his bedside table with a sticky note that said, "If anything looks wrong, just don't get it." In the morning, Dad went to do the shopping. He came back with everything I eat and he eats, but my brother was missing about 85% of his food items. When my brother asked WTF happened, my dad said that he couldn't tell whether we needed to get some things because the amounts of those things seemed unusual or costly, and felt that it was safer if he didn't buy those things. It turns out Dad had been kept awake by my brother's movie for 2.5 hours last night, and was as sick to the back teeth with it as I was. My brother had to walk up to the local shop and buy as many of his things as he could from there. They didn't have everything, out of his own money. He even had to make 2 trips because he couldn't carry everything the first time. It's a mile walk there, meaning he had to walk 4 miles in total to buy his food out of his pocket. Dad wouldn't drive him because he had a long run to do, and I sure as hell wasn't going to help. I was too busy eating my Pringles. That I forgot to put on the list. I'm still going to have to help make the list in future, but when I do, something tells me my 27-year-old brother will help properly next time. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences and opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.